r/askreddit. Redditors who were dating someone that went from I think I want to marry this person to I think I need a restraining order. What happened? Started dating in high school, had some ups and downs, but at the time I just chalked it up to us being immature. My last 2 years of college really proved he just had serious issues. When I moved out of state for good, it's like a switch flipped and he got extremely possessive and controlling. Wanted all my friends' numbers, gave me a schedule of when we need to be in communication, and if I missed any he was blowing my phone up with threats of suicide. Finally got the restraining order when he showed up to my friend's apartment looking for me, threatening to call the police because I still had a pair of his shoes that I didn't even have. That's so crazy. Something very similar happened to me, except I was the other side of it. Looking back, it's insane to me how I could think the things I was doing were right, but I did them anyways. I'm not sure what happened in that relationship to bring that out of me, but I developed some serious hang-ups that I'm still working to get over today. I was dating a guy. I really liked him. He was smart, funny, and adventurous. We were getting pretty serious. He pretty much lived at my house. One weekend I went home for my dad's birthday. All of my brothers were home. I have 5 of them. We ate, drank, and were merry. One of my sister-in-laws took some pictures and posted them on Facebook with me tagged in them. Got back to my house Sunday evening and my boyfriend was coming over shortly to hang out, spend the night. When he got there he was basically frothing at the mouth. He shoved me and called me a whore. Started pushing me around, ranting about how he had to see me whoring myself all over the internet and hanging on a bunch of guys. I told him they were my brothers, but at that point I was done with him. I told him to get the fuck out of my house. He took that as an invitation to throw me up against a wall and try to force me to kiss him. My roomie heard the commotion and came out of her room with a bat. Then shithead made the only good decision he made that day and decided to leave. Kicked in a pantry door and wrecked some drywall on his way out though. I threw all his stuff in a dumpster. He ended up stalking me for years. Showing up drunk at places I'd moved to after we dated. Calling after I'd changed my number. Even texted me on the week of my wedding to ask me to reconsider marrying him instead. Yeah, you crazy fuck, I want to dump the love of my life for a crazy stalker. Jesus Christ, hope that man leaves you alone. I love your roomie. Tell her she's a fucking badass. She punched me in the face while I was sleeping. Apparently my phone had woken her when I received a text in the middle of the night from a girl asking if there was any chance I could come pick her up. She assumed I was cheating and figured that the most efficient way of addressing her concerns was to just punch me in the face, hard, while I lay there sleeping. The text was from a non-Alabamian cousin who had some sort of semi-emergency and needed to get picked up from a party. I had an ex who went out of town for a weekend, and when she got back she came over to my apartment when I wasn't there and she found a bra that wasn't hers. When I came home my place was completely trashed. Like thousands of dollars worth of damage. And since I was in my early 20s this easily amounted to my entire life's work up to that point. We're talking TV, stereo, instruments, Sega Genesis and SNES, this was the mid-90s, and clothes. When I rightfully asked what the fuck, she accused me of cheating and having another woman over during the weekend she was out of town. I denied this and she presented her evidence and triumphantly waved the bra in my face. She seemed to really enjoy her AHA moment. Hey, remember a couple of weeks ago when you told me you were going out of town for the weekend and that I should invite my kid sister to come over and take her out to that stupid underage club up the street? Yeah, I did that and she left her bra here when she changed. She called me about it yesterday, yeah, goddamn psycho. I've never seen an inflated sense of self deflate so quickly in real life like that. And I came to a harsh realization when I kicked her crazy ass to the curb. It's almost as hard explaining to your friends why you're breaking up with a super hot chick who is out of your league as it is explaining it to her. Like none of my buddies could accept that I didn't want to spend time with a crazy person who basically ruined my life in 1-2 hours fit of uncontrollable anger. She literally destroyed everything I own except for a few dishes in the cupboard. Even my food was fucked up. My food. Yeah, but she was so fucking hot. And the worst part? After we broke up I found out she was cheating on me with random dudes all the frigging time. We were spending a large amount of time together. with me staying at his house several nights of the week. He went mad one day because he said we weren't spending enough time together. He pulled out a notepad and drew up a schedule, outlining in excruciating detail each hour that I would spend with him throughout the week from then on. I distinctly remember sitting there, saying nothing and feeling like I was in the twilight zone. Things got significantly crazier from then on, but this moment always sticks out in my mind. Big red flag. I was 15, dumb as fuck because I'd never really been in a serious relationship before, and had no idea what I was doing. This was my first love, so of course I was convinced I was gonna marry him. He was 18 and a total piece of shit. He told me he loved me, that we were gonna be together forever, and sold me on the idea of a perfect life. I wanted to be grown so bad that I jumped at my chance to feel like an adult. The crazy thing is, there's not a singular event or thing he did to trigger a grandiose get the fuck away from me moment. He was shitty from the beginning. Our first date as a couple was homecoming. He was actually taking another girl to homecoming as a friend, but the week of he told me he cancelled on her so he could go as my date. Instead of seeing this as the red flag it was, 15-year-old me thought it was some grandiose romantic gesture. It was only downhill from there. He expected me to be on the phone with him constantly when I wasn't at school. I would get home from school and he would expect me to call. If I took too long to do it he would yell at me. We would stay on the phone until I literally fell asleep. On the weekends, I was expected to call him as soon as I woke up. If I slept in too late he would yell at me. What were we talking about? Literally nothing. He would expect me to stay on the phone with him sitting in silence for hours and get mad if I said I wanted to go. Half the time he would get mad at me anyway for not having anything to say, never mind the fact that he didn't have anything to say either. Anytime I told him I would be out of town for the weekend for a family or optional school trip he would get angry at me. It took at minimum an hour to get him to tell me what his deal was. Every time he would tell me he had this amazing weekend planned and we were gonna go out and do all these fun things. Never mind the fact that he never had any plans for any of the weekends I was in town. He did get physical on a couple of occasions, but dumb teenager me just thought it was because he was so passionate. I kinda realized I was in over my head when he started pressuring me to have sex. I didn't want to, but he did. And he talked about all these plans about going to a hotel room and how amazing it was going to be. It made me super uncomfortable, but after a while I just started going along with making the plans because I knew it meant we would move past the subject faster. I'm not sure what happened. I was talking with my mom one day and something just snapped. It was like one minute I was head over heels with this guy and the next I was repulsed by the very idea of him. My mom made and executed a plan beyond what I could have handled myself. I ended it over the phone because I was scared of how he would react in person. My mom contacted his parents and told them what was going on. She contacted the school to make sure I had support there too. I made it clear to him in no uncertain terms that he shouldn't talk to me or come around me at all. He drove by my house frequently for a couple of days. My mom called me out of school for a week. He would sit outside on the street for an hour or two at a time. Even our neighbors got involved in helping us. They would warn us if he was outside or let us know if he came by when we were out. It got kinda bad and I went to stay with my dad for a few days. He came by and left a card and a stuffed bear on the porch at my mom's on Valentine's Day. Eventually he just stopped. But I spent a lot of time scared out of my mind not knowing if or when he was going to pop up, even after he stopped coming around. I still have no idea why he stopped, but I won't forget that kind of fear. Your mom is a rock star. Glad you got out of the situation safely and your community got around you. Holy shit. Sounds like the loser my sister dated. He left her flowers and a bear on her car for Valentine's Day. A few days later, I wake up in the middle of the night to my dad yelling. This dude had climbed up on the little porch roof by my sister's window. My dad took a baseball bat and was threatening to bash his head in if he didn't get the hell away and stay away. Thank goodness this all happened before my dad got into guns. Never saw the douchebag again, but my dad wrote loser whacker on the bat and it is in their hallway closet now, almost 20 years later. The worst version I have of this was a guy that I had been dating, who rammed my truck with a moving van, repeatedly, at an immigration checkpoint in New Mexico, well after dark. He thought it was funny. He'd been behaving badly, but I just thought it was the stress of the move. The aggravated assault by U-Haul is when I decided to break up with him. He stalked me for years after that, harassing me at work, which led to me getting fired. I switched from law firms to legal software, and that seemed to make it harder to find me. His stalking ended in blowing up a brick and mortar mailbox with plastic explosives. I think he laid low after that, because the FBI was looking for him. He eventually moved back to California, years later. An ex-girlfriend of his contacted me about 7 years later when she was settling his estate. She wanted to make sure there weren't any children. Did he die? Started dating not long after a previous relationship. At first everything was amazing and I did everything for this girl. For my 21st birthday we went to Alton Towers with 2 of my friends, 1 boy and 1 girl. We stayed over at the hotel. We were all in the same room having a drink and a laugh when suddenly my GF storms out the room for no reason. Rightly so, I follow her back to our room as to ask what's up. Before I can even finish my sentence she punches me square in the face, gets me to the floor and kicks me about 5-6 times. I ask why and it's because I'm apparently always looking at my girlfriend. Anyway, in the morning we set off home and I assume all is well. We drop my friends off and as I pull up to her house she puts her feet on my windscreen and kicks it 3-4 times, cracking it. Not sure why I stayed with her for a month after this as she scratched at my face repeatedly when I accepted an old school friend on Facebook. Glad you made your way out of that shit, dude. I found out he was soliciting underage girls. Like a record scratch, it was over. Record scratch. Freeze frame as FB agent is in mid-tackle of her BF. Yup, that's me. So you're probably wondering how I got here, huh? She was unreasonably hot. I'm good looking but she was just stupid beautiful. She found out my ex's name somehow, without my knowledge, found her Facebook and started sending her threatening messages. I have no idea why. She then deleted every female number from my phone. All my relatives except my mother and aunts that were listed as such. Her hotness made me continue with her for another 3 weeks after this. She said that she has issues but being pretty means that most guys put up with it. And I need to just deal with it. Ending it with her felt more like trying to explain complex mathematics to a donkey. She wouldn't accept it for ages. I respected her self-awareness about psycho she was though, TBH. Some girls like that know fully well they're insane and they wear it like a quirky badge of honor. The piss me off and I become your worst nightmare girls are the ones you want to avoid. I was dating a guy who was very sweet in the beginning. After about 6 months he got possessive. He didn't trust me. An example of this was one night I told him I was meeting a friend I used to work with at a bar a block away. We lived in a safe area and it was a short walk. Her name sounded like it could be male or female, but I assured him she was a she. He showed up at the bar while we were there and it made him look very insecure. He began tracking my phone's GPS. I found out when I stopped at a relative's house after work on my way home and he freaked out and called my mom. She actually knew that was where I was and he had a hard time believing I wasn't cheating. The last straw was my first week at a new job. I worked nights and had my phone. I got this long-winded email regarding an innocent comment on a Facebook selfie of me. There were screenshots of it and a huge manifesto about why my buddies online all wanted to take me away from him. After I broke up with him, I got emails for months swinging between apologies and telling me I was the abuser. I got emails telling me he was being drugged. It was insane. Suunu. Keep in mind, this was in the late 90s. There was chemistry, and lots of long talks on the internet and on the phone, and we were getting along pretty well. And, one day, I don't recall how it came about to the topic, but it came about to the topic of Coca-Cola. And she began to spin harder and faster and more eccentrically than a toy top on a whirligig teacups ride, about how Coca-Cola was Jewish. The next 20 minutes were filled with her regurgitating the absolute worst anti-Semitic garbage that could have been sourced out of any hate organization's manifesto. The kind of stuff that gets vomited on 4chan and 8chan today. I listened to her just spew it all out. And then thanked her for her viewpoint, and excused myself and left. And then my dog ate my cell phone. The last I heard about her, she had moved to the Pacific Northwest. I guess to be with other white supremacists. I just feel bad for her children who had to grow up with that culture. I hope they're healing. He owned a house, had 2 jobs, lived in my apartment, didn't pay for anything, didn't help me out, he was always resting for work. I had a full-time job and was paying the bills. But the straw that broke the camel's back was when, after buying me a puppy I wasn't really keen on getting since I already had one, he refused to even take them out to go potty. I had to teach a 50-year-old man how to walk a dog. And he refused to even buy a bag of dog food. I was like, that's it. I'm keeping the 4-legged dogs and getting rid of the 2-legged one. He was a postman and a cook in a casino. I realized he had bills. But I was barely scraping by before he moved in without my permission. I couldn't afford him and another puppy. I am happy to say, I still have the puppies. They are almost 7, and 7 1/2 and the most amazing dogs I could hope for. But I was happy when I moved and he no longer knows where I live unless he uses the PO to find out. That would be creepy. I dated this girl from halfway across the globe. I'm in Northwest Europe. She was from Southeast Asia, and we actually met up here. Had a great time. She got along great with my parents, and plans were made for me to head down there the next year. Somewhere along the line though we got into more and more online arguments, combined with me feeling heavily inadequate and some other shit, and around February of the following year I broke things off. I felt bad but I could have never continued that relationship. And then in August of that year me, my sister and my mother are walking downtown and we suddenly see her. She'd flew over in hopes of mending the relationship, even went out to see my father, though he wasn't home, and all that. Yeah. Classic. I got home from overseas and found drugs, not my clothes, shitload of money missing and left her. 2 years later she's married, but still constantly texting and emailing me, new number and emails when I block the old, etc. Finally got enough proof that she was keying my truck, breaking pot etc at my place to get an EPO on her. Got a full PO and it's finally quiet. I dated a girl for a year and a half after being single for 6 years. Everything was hunky-dory, even though our second official date was Easter dinner with her family. Yikes. Should have seen it then. Until our 1-year anniversary, she was upset she didn't get the magic ring for Christmas, which she'd been pushing for. I really loved her, and did want to marry her. She started pushing for us to live together, even though neither of us were ready, nor could afford to pay the rent, utilities, and food, with our combined income. She talked of babies, living together in a town far away from my work, my family, my friends, close to her family, her job, her friends. If I wouldn't answer her texts, worked 3rd shift, so when she was awake, I was sleeping, or just getting up, so not awake yet, she'd flip out at me. Things finally came to a head one week. We'd had an argument about living together again, which devolved into whenever we spent time together, I'd always fall asleep in her arms. 3rd shift, 60+ hours a week, really tired, and she never got to spend quality time with me, because I always fell asleep. This argument continued for 3 days, with her blowing me up at work. Finally, I realized I wasn't ever going to make her happy, no matter what. So I ended it. Cut ties, and never looked back.